And I guess, Wayne, that is a similar type of analysis. You use the data differently, but but it's the same type of challenge. All right. Now, the 77% here relates to the matriculation requirements at age 16. And again, I think you'd be familiar with the English system, that the metric there is, does a child have 5 good GCSE passes at age 16? That's the sort of that's the barrier, that's a hurdle you've got to get over if you want to get into further education, apprenticeships, or what have you. And that's the sort of the benchmark, the metric that we use to assess performance. And so, in these low deprivation schools, 77% of youngsters are performing at that level. The national average is 60%, just 60% at the moment, so that these schools are performing better than the national average. These kids are performing less well. All right? Now, the sample of schools I want to be talking to you about this morning, and we want to be reflecting ourselves against this morning, have broken this trend absolutely. All right? And the 12 schools I'm going to be talking about are in the highest category of deprivation. So these are schools that are right here. All right? They're all 30% or over in terms of their free school meals. But they have achieved over 80% of good GCSE passes. So despite being there in terms of that metric, they are performing at this level. So on average, right, they are performing higher than the affluent pupils in the low deprivation schools. All right. Now, by any measure, that is quite a stunning piece of data. And the school I was just talking about in Greenwood Dale in Nottingham is one of those schools. All right, very high deprivation, right, but over 80% good GCSE passes. We inspect our schools every 4 years, and they've had 2 recent inspection reports which are judged as being outstanding. When you look at the individual criteria in those reports, they've received outstanding grades for teaching and learning, leadership, and for the school overall. And in terms of the value-added measures that we use in England, so we've tried to measure we measure the progress of youngsters from 11 to 16 in terms of the value-added. They're almost off the Richter scale. All right. So this isn't these schools are being selected on very, very rigorous criteria. All right, and by any sort of stretch of the imagination, I believe that they've done outstandingly well. If this is the national picture, these are the same type of schools, but they're up here in terms of their student performance. Now, yet, despite that, the scale of challenges that they meet, that they face, are actually quite considerable. The vast majority of youngsters come from, we say there, quite poor or disturbed family backgrounds. Many of the students are subject to emotional and psychological tension, where regular attendance is a problem or was a problem. They're open to a range of urban ills that often characterize poorer communities: drugs and alcohol, peer pressure, and exposure to behavior which ranges from antisocial to actually quite violent. And getting these students ready and willing to learn is quite a constant challenge. All right. Do you recognize some of those characteristics? Does that sort of mesh with your own experiences? And that's why I thought it would be useful, because I think these schools, and I know a lot of these schools. I tend to work in these schools, and they seem to me to be quite similar to the backgrounds which you're facing. And yet these schools have actually, like many of you, have actually bucked the trend. And what we want to find out is we want to try and reflect upon our own strategies against what these schools are doing. And the other point to make is that these are maintained schools, all right? These are state schools. These are not grammar schools. These are not specially privileged schools. There's no additional funding going into these schools apart from what they get in terms of their regular state provision, and these are absolutely non-selective schools. All right, they just open the gates, and the kids come in. All right.